So Taimur, let me ask you this, and this might be a stupid question. Are you free to say whatever you want without getting in trouble with I think, you're someone who's always said what the fuck he wanted, right? Can you do that here and be okay? With, I don't know.
So
I know the political
these
situation.
days, okay, so Mahan, these days, the situation in Pakistan, and not too sure if you're following or not following very closely what's been going on. But there is definitely a risk involved if you do speak out too much against what we call here the establishment. And when we talk about the establishment, what that means is we talk about the military, okay?
Yeah.
And as you know, I come from a family which has had a lot of members that have been in the military uh, in the first place. But anyway, on to your question. Is it safe or is it not safe? I'm not sure, but I do plan to speak my mind regardless. And so
Badass, dude. Badass.
you kind of you know me very well, and you know that I'm not going to do anything else.
Badass, man. All right, everyone. Good morning in the United States. This is Mahanth. I'm in Wisconsin, but it's nighttime in other places. It's also daylight savings time today, so that screwed us up a little bit, but we figured it out, and we're all here. Again, I'm Mahanth. Thank you all for joining, and we'll do some introductions. We have Taimur Butt from Karachi, Pakistan. Is that where you are right now?
Hi, Mahant, how are you? Yes, that is where I am. I'm in Karachi, in Pakistan, and yeah. So myself and Mahant, we go back a very long way. We were at college together. We went to Georgetown University. We both graduated in 2001, and we have known each other ever since. And for it's been about what 23 years now. Thanks for the introduction, Mahant.
Yeah, 26 if you go back to 1997 when we met. It's
Yep,
been a long
that's right.
time.
That's right. 26. That's correct.
All right. And then Anup Pai, someone I've known even longer. Namaste, Anup. Good to see you. Okay, tell us about yourself and where you are right now.
I'm in Udupi, which is a city or a town where I grew up. And I guess, Mahant, you spent some time when you were a kid as well. It's on the coast of India. I live in Bangalore, but I'm in Udupi visiting family and doing other things here, including this recording. I set up, I work in the decentralization space broadly. I am trying to make the internet a more democratic place globally, starting with India. And it's a company or a network of companies we call e-Samudai. I'll talk more about it later. I've written about it on your blog as well, Mahant.
Yeah. All right, good stuff. So we have here the United States, we have Pakistan, we have India. I was thinking of calling this IPA, India, Pakistan, America, right? I know you like that. And then your last name is Pai, P-A-I. So we have interesting acronyms we can do. So this is a pretty unique forum. You don't see a lot of forums like this with folks from our three countries, but I think these three countries are very important for the future of the world and actually the present as well. And the relations between these three countries on different levels will matter a lot for, I think, the future of the world, which is why we're doing this. So we'll get started with some content here. Taimur, so you're in Karachi. You've been there since, I think, the early 2000s after college.
Yeah, so I've actually lived in Karachi my whole life, Mohan. And
That's
I was not born in Karachi. I was born in Rawalpindi, which is in a different province in Pakistan. But since I was two, I've been here, and I'm 45 now. So what, about 43 years, out of which, of course, I spent some time in the US. I was with you, and then I lived in the UAE for some time, a couple of years. But barring those 7 odd years, the rest of the time I've been here right from the start. And my family's into business here, and you've visited Pakistan, so and you know what it's like here because you're one of the few, at least you're my only U.S. born friend that's actually been out here and visited me in Pakistan.
Wow.
And fond memories from your trip.
Absolutely. And I actually wanted to talk about that trip a little bit here. So I went to Pakistan
Sure.
2012. We had a great time in Karachi, Lahore with our other friend Usman Hamid from college as well. Wanted to ask you a couple things. Is barbecue tonight still there?
It still is there, Mant, and it's
Right.
very much there. It's a bit of a legacy sort of restaurant now, and I'm surprised you still remember the name. It means that it must have left quite an impact on you,
I not
because
only
it is one
remember,
of the,
not only remember the name, I remember the amazing meal we had there, which is why I'm bringing it up. I'm glad it's still there. How about Xander's? Is that still there?
it's very much there, Mant. Xander's is very much there. It's very close to where I live, and I'm quite shocked that you remember the names of both these places.
Unforgettable
But good for you.
experiences, man. That's what this is about. And then we also went to go bowling at your bowling alley. I understand that's been repurposed.
Yeah. So that's been repurposed. It's no longer a bowling alley. We converted it to a wedding hall. So now there's two wedding halls over there. And but yeah, again, that was a long time back. It was 10, 15 years ago. Things have changed. It's not like everything is what it used to be. So yeah, it's a wedding hall now.
Right on. And then one more thing, Taimur, you came to India as well.
I
You
did.
came
I
to my
did.
wedding in Goa in 2009. That was a failed marriage, but one of the good things that came out of it is a lot of friends from around the world and relatives were able to come to India. So tell us what you thought of your India trip from what
So
you
look,
remember.
Mahanth, I've been to India twice actually. Okay, so one was for your wedding, and that was my trip to Goa, and it was a wonderful trip. All the I mean, I don't really know where to start, but I guess I should start by saying that my experience at your wedding when I went to Goa, it was wonderful, right? And I think obviously the reason was that I was with all you guys. I was with friends. I was in the middle of a wedding celebration. I like Goa as a place. I thought it was a great place. I really enjoyed myself, and I didn't feel any of it wasn't like I was expecting there to be any issues anyway, because I knew all you guys were going to be there and stuff. But I felt very much at home, and even culturally, I think the two countries they have a lot of similarities. Very easy to get by being a Pakistani. Obviously, there's same language, similar sort of points of reference. Culturally, also there are similarities between India and Pakistan, and I did feel very comfortable, and it was a lot of fun. And so that was one of the trips I made to India, which was your wedding. And then the other time I was in India was a different time, but that time I was in Delhi, and I went to Delhi. I stayed with a family friend, and so yeah, I've been to India twice, just to sort of bring it onto the record.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you made those trips, and sounds like it was largely positive when you visited.
Yes, it was definitely positive. I had a good time both times. I did not, I'll tell you. So I think we're talking about this because we want to explore the relationship between the countries, and from that point of view, I would say that we hear a lot of stuff on the media, right? And we hear a lot of stuff on television, and we hear a lot of stuff, and then we form these opinions sitting in our lounge or sitting in our homes and sitting in our own countries, and then we come to these conclusions based on what the television is telling us. I didn't feel any of that, when I was in India. I had a wonderful time. Maybe it was the people I was with. Maybe it was the fact that I was with friends and family friends, and the great hosts like yourself, and my other family friend who was a Sikh gentleman. I had a great time in India. It was a wonderful experience both times. Um, so yeah, it was a good time.
Yeah, I'm glad to hear that. I think in both cases, whether it was my visit to Pakistan, which was awesome the entire time, and a lot of very hospitable people, great food that we just talked about, and good homemade food at your home, Timur. And I think people to people contacts like this are very important. Even if there's at this level, there's the political stuff going on and there's the media stuff going on. I think people should see things for themselves, right? And there's nothing to beat that. And Anup, so you're a well-traveled guy. You've been through over 40
Never been to
countries.
Pakistan. I would love to go to Pakistan. I mean,
Yeah, you
never
can be
had the
my
chance.
guest anytime. Would
Yeah,
love to have
I'd
you
love to
over.
take you up on that soon, soon.
For sure, for sure.
Let's do it. So Anup and I just saw each other in January in Vietnam for an amazing time. I think Anup, it was your 10th visit to Vietnam or something. Yeah, I think we both had an amazing time there. Beautiful country. Taimur, I don't know if you've been there.
No, I haven't been to Vietnam, unfortunately, and it's on my list. I definitely want to go.
100%.
From what I've heard from people like you and from a lot of other people, apparently it's a lovely place. I'd love to go check it out.
Yeah, totally worth it. And Anup, so can you tell us a little bit about what you're up to in India? You're up to a lot of things, but give us kind of a brief rundown. I think you must be involved in 12 different startup ventures, but we might not have time for every single one today.
No, I won't bore you. So broadly, most of my work in this field started when I came to the US for the first time in 2015. Before that, I've traveled to and worked in many countries in the banking industry, helping them set up technology, including in places like Iran. So I've traveled to Iran before I traveled to the US. And they gave me a visa, so I guess it's okay, right? So, yeah, I mean, in the US, I felt, and this was the Trump time, right? I mean, this is 2015, 2016. There was like this whole post-Obama kind of trash that was going on. And I felt that if this is this is what development does to you as a country. I mean, the most developed country in the world, is splitting apart and it's polarized and like people are. I mean, it's a mess. I mean, I felt that there needs to be a better way where communities can work together, and rather than listen to what media top down is pushing on, I started working on this whole democratization of the internet. Internet was supposed to be a very egalitarian place, but it's gotten colonized by a bunch of American companies. Obviously, China has fully colonized internet, but a bunch of American companies have colonized the internet, and I felt, and Trump obviously was elected thanks to that power, and I felt that it's time that we take up some kind of action, community action, so that we are able to create a more community-led or a people's internet, where we can trust each other more rather than fight with each other. And that's e-Samudai. I mean, essentially it's a network economy or a Web3 decentralization of what we call blockchain. Some of those ideas are in this entire venture. We are helping create technology that can help anybody, individual or groups, create their own platforms. So they can create their own Facebooks or Amazons, and each of those can talk to each other and create this network of connections. So this is what we call e-Samudai. Samudai stands for community. Sam in Sanskrit means together. Uday means rise. So together we rise. I mean, I felt this is what we need as a civilization, right? I mean, we need to come together and rise together rather than fight
Very
each
cool.
other. So yeah, it's
Well, very
a
cool.
bunch of things.
Yeah, so just as a disclaimer, we're on Google Meets right now. This is one of the colonizers you're talking
That's
about,
fine.
right?
I'll use the services. I mean, they don't need to take my data for you giving me services, right? So I mean, that's been my my big issue with them.
Very interesting. So we're in the year 2024, an interesting year for all three countries. And so I just wanted to quickly do an outline of the political developments going on. So you mentioned 2015, the campaign that year for president. 2016 was a big year. So is 2024. And we're going to see a rerun here. Joe Biden is the presumptive nominee for the Democrats. Donald Trump is the presumptive nominee for the Republicans. It's these two aging white males that most people don't like. They're both quite unlikable. They're both older. I wish both of them would step aside for younger candidates in both parties, but we are stuck with them. It's pretty clear. That's kind of the landscape in the United States. November 2024 is a big election, not just for president, but for US Congress. So Taimur, let's dig into Pakistan and the politics of 2024. I know a lot less about that. And
Right.
viewers anywhere, how would you summarize what's going on in 2024?
Okay, Bharat, before we get into Pakistani politics, I'm going to talk a little bit about American politics from a Pakistani point of view. I think that would be
Sure. Yes.
something which is going to be of a lot of interest to some of your viewers.
Yes.
And so here's my take, all right? You just mentioned Trump and Biden, all right? I'm going to first tell you and I think this is very important for just the global community to sort of hear this. And it would add a lot of value to what we're talking about today. Well, look, you have to understand something, all right? The Pakistan, I'm just going to go a little bit into the history here, all right? Pakistan has had a very long relationship with the US over the years, right? And that relationship, let's start off with the fact that if you go back enough into the 80s, there was General Ziaul Haq. General Ziaul Haq was essentially what he did was he aligned Pakistan with the United States. Okay, and this was during the Cold War era, and this is when you had the USSR, and the USSR was at that point in time very aggressively sort of they were expanding very aggressively. All right, and the reason I'm talking about this history is because this will sort of this will sort of stretch out into what is happening today, and it'll help to explain some of the opinions that people have over here. So anyway, going back to the Cold War era, we had the USSR expanding. Ziaul Haq, who was then military dictator, decided to side with the US, and there was sort of like a coalition that formed. All right, and it was a time when what you keep hearing about these mujahideen, right? It was a time when the mujahideen essentially came into being, and it was under the leadership of the Pakistan army, and it was under the sort of it was like a collaborative effort essentially between the US and between Pakistan. Okay, now going forward. A lot of things happened in this region. The USSR was eventually sort of, as you know, when the Cold War finished, the USSR broke up. The US and Pakistan at that point, they didn't have a very smooth transition into the new phase. So what ended up happening was there are a lot of these mujahideen that were created, and I'm just being very blunt here. They were created in collaboration between the US and Pakistan. When the US pulled out of this region, what ended up happening was that these mujahideen that were created, they stayed over here in this region, right? And this effectively was a starting point of what the world today knows as terrorism in this region. All right, and so that's how this whole thing came into being. Okay, and if you and the reason I'm talking about this is because this relates to a lot of the attitudes that you see now in Pakistan towards the Democratic Party, towards the Republican Party. Okay, so fast forward to today. Now, Joe Biden. Let's talk a bit about Joe Biden. Joe Biden is essentially viewed by Pakistanis, generally speaking, and I'm going to be very blunt here, so please
Yeah,
don't take.
please.
I hope
That's
your
why we're here.
audience doesn't take any offense to what I'm about to say, but he's generally viewed as a warmonger. All right, and it's not the same for Donald Trump. Okay, and you just mentioned that these are two people that are very disliked within the U.S. sphere. All right. Um, if you ask people here in Pakistan what they have to think about both these presidents, they will generally, by and large, tell you that Joe Biden is essentially leaning towards creating conflict, and they will generally tell you that Donald Trump is leaning towards finishing conflict. Okay, so there's a completely different, it's a 180 degrees different view what people have towards Trump, what people have towards Biden. So, coming on to these two people that you are saying are both disliked within the US, it's not really the case here in Pakistan. If you ask people, they would tell you, for the most part, that hey, we're pretty happy with Trump if he comes into power. And the reason that they'll give you for that is that they feel that he hasn't carried out a lot of military action. Instead, he's curtailed a lot of the military action. And they will tell you that Joe Biden, under his rule, it's been the exact opposite, and they feel that the U.S. has been way too involved in conflict, globally, spanning from, and we can talk about this at length. I'm sure we will as the program progresses. But yeah, so that's just to give you a bit of a background and just to give you the views that people have here. We're trying to have a frank discussion here, so I'm not holding back.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to
No,
give it to you
this
as
is
it is.
very interesting what you just said, and I think counterintuitive for a lot of people. And a big reason why I believe, and I wanted to ask you that more really quickly, is if you've heard Trump's anti-Muslim rhetoric, has that not affected what people think about him in
Right.
Buckingham?
So generally, the way people, okay, so I think that is something that, because I have obviously a lot of friends in the US as well that are Muslim, right? And like me, of course, and I have friends that are living, and they're doctors, there's business people, there's professionals, so on and so forth. Yes, if I ask my friends that are living in the US what they think, yeah, they do have that issue with Trump. They say that, because of the Muslim ban and all of that, that's something that bothers them. But that's not the case if I ask my friends living here in Pakistan. They generally are willing to overlook that, and they will say that, okay, fine, maybe there was some justification, behind the fact that he implemented a travel ban. Maybe there is a genuine problem because if you look around you, there does appear to be uh, some level of terrorism, at least, that is originating from within the Islamic world. Now, what the reasons for that is up for debate, and why it has come about, that is up for debate. But the fact is that sometimes people give him a margin, or give him benefit of the doubt, or they're prepared to cut him that slack, right, for implementing that travel ban. But what they're not prepared to do is to forgive the U.S. foreign policy when it comes to the other places that it's involved in, and that's something that people have a very, very sort of hard and fixed sort of approach towards. Does that make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense. And this is actually fascinating. I don't know if a lot of people know what you just said, and it's important that people understand this and that these issues are complicated, right? And it's not that this candidate's perfect and that one's not, including these guys. So let's stay on this topic. On to you, Anup. What are Indians talking about with the 2024 U.S. election? Because it affects all of us, right? Even though
I,
you guys aren't in the United States.
So as of now, nobody is talking about the US elections in India. Everybody is talking about the Indian elections, which are 2 months
Okay.
away, right? So, however, I have obviously one eye on the US, and I'll talk about my views, and which is only shared by people in the financial markets. Only people in the financial markets follow the US elections closely. Because for us, I mean, broadly, for a common man in India, the U.S. is a in a fantastic place, right? I mean, we've not felt the brunt of U.S. war or U.S. Directly playing let's say conflicts on our land yet, right? I mean, we felt it as a secondary, nature. I mean, because of terrorism is affected us as well, right? So I mean, only there we felt it. Otherwise, it's China or Pakistan or Bangladesh and the neighbors that we typically talk about in the form of conflict, right? U.S. is seen as this fantastic country, which is full of these great inventions, and I mean, people look up to America like. I mean, you can walk into any city in India and talk about America, and you'll generally feel that people appreciate it, right? So, Indian elections we'll talk about later. The US elections, particularly in India right now, I mean, my personal view is the US is a warmonger, right? I mean, it's been one for a phenomenal amount of time, right? And it is, broadly been positive because the keeper of somebody has to be there to keep the peace, I guess. I mean, that's the role of a superpower, right? I mean, it's been that. You and I visited the Vietnam War Memorial, and we saw that there is war that is used as R&D for weapons, right? I mean, research and development of new weaponry and so on happens during wartime, right? I went to Hiroshima. I saw the impacts of the bomb and so on. And these are not even a century old, right? I mean, these are really, really, harsh impacts that U.S. foreign policy has had in another part of the planet, which the U.S. citizen, common U.S. citizen, never feels, right? So I feel, in general, among the section of people that I hang with, we do see that the US has to take a little bit of a chill stance, right? I mean, mind your own business, stay, do your thing, and we are pretty much capable of handling our, things, I mean, over here. And within that, Trump is seen as the person who will change the establishment, right? I mean, I personally also feel that, the narrative that he picked up, drain the swamp and all of that, because Washington DC is made up of, the military contractors and, everybody who feeds off of that industry, right? He did come up with those narratives, and there is a feeling among the people here, outside of the fact that US is a great partner, great business partner, and all of that. Outside of that fact, Trump coming to power does seem like a way to which through which we see that US's foreign interests in the form of military will come down in the rest of the world, right? I mean, Biden, we just feel Biden is useless. As a leader, he just doesn't seem like a leader that knows what he's doing, and just doesn't give us the
I
confidence
would
that
have
he's a
to,
leader.
if you don't mind, I'm just going to jump in. I would have to
Yeah.
second Anup over there because I think generally that is exactly the view that people here in Pakistan have as well. That Biden is pretty much just a useless president. He's good for nothing, and they just feel that he's like, he's essentially, well, firstly, most people think he's just senile, all right, and like
Yeah.
he tends to forget things. Like the guy can't even finish his sentences at times. It seems as if people have to help him, spoon feed him while he's like giving his speeches and stuff. So
However,
yeah, Anup, I agree with
I
Anup.
heard that the State of the Union speech was brilliant. I mean, I'm going to watch it. I was surprised that he was able to speak coherently for an hour and 10 minutes. Yeah, so maybe,
It
yeah.
was it was actually very good. I thought I saw it. I have been disappointed in his campaign overall, and I don't think they've been running a very good campaign. However, this speech was, I think, very good. I hope you guys do watch it. And there's a lot of topics in there, including foreign policy and commercial things in it. So yeah, so to come back to Anup, what you mentioned, the Saigon War Memorial made me sick to my stomach. If you remember, both of us
Both of us, yeah.
couldn't even finish going through the
And
museum.
this is
It's
1960s.
horrendous.
This is 1960s, just like a few years before I was born, right? So it was not too long back. So yeah, I mean those atrocities. I mean, you know what you're doing with those chemicals, and you're spraying it right on populations that have no recourse. And this is, long after you've done that, it's still causing damage, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it is a warmongering nation. I mean, let's not be shy to call that, right? I mean, in a way.
There are children today that are still suffering from the chemical warfare of that age, and it's passed on through generations. It's absolutely, as an American, it made me sick to my stomach. It also made me appreciate the Vietnamese people even more, their resilience, and now they are doing well. Vietnam as a country is doing very well, as Anup, you and I saw, and they again, no country and no economy is perfect, but they are progressing. It's the new Asia, and it's something I was happy to see on this trip. And it made it special for me as I'm going through some of my own struggles to see something so uplifting right now. So we talked a little bit about U.S. politics, which is great. My uh, my own kind of 2 cents I would add to this conversation as an American who's in Wisconsin, which is a very purple state, meaning every single vote here is going to count. It's going to be extremely close. It was the last two times. 2016, Trump won by a razor thin margin. 2020, Biden won by a razor thin margin. I'm expecting that again. The main takeaway, I think, is that it's going to be very close again. I don't think anyone knows who's going to win right now. And anyone who does, who seems to have a crystal ball, is not is not going to be able to predict. None of us can predict what's going to happen between now and November that will affect the race. A lot's going to happen.
I would add a few more odds to this, Mahant. I mean, I
So
feel new candidates might appear. I don't think we are. It's a dead set that these two candidates will be the candidates in November. We are still in April or March. Lots of things can happen. I mean, I feel even a third front candidate or a third, a new party, and all of those are possible. I mean, in the age of social media, I think organizing, grassroots organizing, is possible in short time, and we've seen this happen already. I mean, let's see. I mean, I think this is going to be an interesting 2024, and it is, in my opinion, is going to be telling for our civilization. What happens in America in 2024 will be sort of how our civilization will progress, I feel.
it's global consequences. Yeah, this is a big election. And to your point, Anup, if you've heard about Robert F. Kennedy Jr., and he's getting a lot of traction. I'm a huge fan of Ross Perot, who ran in '92 and got 19% or 18% of the vote and swung the election that year that Bill Clinton's first term started. So that is already happening. There's a lot of interest in these third-party candidates, and is there a better way than this two-party system? Um, great, great point to bring up, and an interesting factor in 2024. So that's U.S. elections. We've talked about this a lot. Let's continue talking about it in the future. There's a lot that's going to happen. So, Taimur, are you ready to talk about the Pakistani political situation in 2024?
Yes, absolutely. So, just to bring you up to speed with what's been going on, Herman, look, we just had an election here just now. Okay, it was literally a month ago, approximately a month ago, and this was probably the most rigged election that we've ever had in our history.
Wow.
Um,
In your history.
right. I would think so. I would think so. I'm pretty sure that most of the elections have been rigged to some extent or to some degree. There seemed to be a very clear majority. Imran Khan's party, which is the PTI, the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf, they would have easily swept the election, and I don't think anybody really questions, the fact that they that they won the election, But as it turns out, Imran Khan, well, he's in jail, and he's been there for a while. So he had independent candidates run on his behalf, on behalf of his party. And so the two parties that have come into power now are the PPP and the PMLN, which are the Benazir Bhutto party, that to make it easy for your viewers, the Benazir Bhutto party and the Nawaz Sharif party, right? So those are like sort of the two parties, and both these parties lost, and both of them are now forming the new government here. So it's been a complete scam, I would say, right? And in the middle of this entire scam, all the fingers are being pointed towards the Pakistan Army for, orchestrating the entire sort of thing to keep Imran Khan out of power, because Imran Khan and the top brass of the military are not pulling along too well these days.
I see. So who is in charge right now?
Right. So that's always the question people ask about Pakistan: who is really in charge of the country? And the standard reply that most Pakistanis will give you is that the army has always been in charge of the country. And to a large extent, I would say that's true as well. Okay. So the army is the most powerful force in the country. That's for sure. And then you have, of course, the PMLN, the PTI, and the PPP, which are the three main parties: Imran Khan, Nawaz Sharif, and then Asif Ali Zardari, who is Benazir's husband. Benazir, of course, has died. So yeah, who's in charge is currently, I would say, a coalition of the military. The PPP and the PMLN are jointly in charge of the country.
Fascinating. This stuff is fascinating to me. And you can see how complicated it is. But you gave a good, I think, uh, overview just now, and I think I just learned a lot just from what you just said, and a lot of uncertainty. It sounds like,
Yeah, so
but a lot of
there's absolutely a lot of uncertainty, and unfortunately, politics is tied to business, right? For obvious reasons, and you have because of what the way I'm sure from what I just said, you could already make out that there is a lot of political chaos that's going on in the country, and there's a whole lot of uncertainty. And because of this uncertainty, this has led to a lot of economic uncertainty as well, right? And so foreign investment is probably at an all-time low. The economic activity has really slowed down. People are sort of unsure about um, their businesses. People are unsure about work. Generally, there's a complete lack of continuation of economic policy because the government, is so fluid that most of the time, you'll have a government make a policy decision, it will not pull through. So, like we had a caretaker set up for the last year and a half, right? For a few months, and now we've had an election, and now this new government is being formed. So what that does is it effectively, for a country to grow economically in a steady fashion, there has to be a continuation of economic policy, right? And that isn't, unfortunately, that isn't happening here. And so the result is that there has been a economic downturn, which I think is more pronounced than the downturn that you see globally. Like obviously, when once COVID hit, the whole world took a hit economically speaking, right? But I think Pakistan has had a double hit. It's been the recovery from COVID has been slowed down and made more painful by this political mess that you see over here.
yes, that's a good explanation, and a lot of unfortunate circumstances, which let's hope they improve. Now, Anup, 2024, we hinted at this, but I heard there's an election in India this year.
Yeah, there's
All
a
right.
huge election in India this year, which seems to be going one-sided. If you have to believe the media and in general, I think even the opposition feels that it is one-sided. There is this very charismatic prime minister that took power in 2014. Narendra Modi, you've done a few skits on him in your underground comedy in New York. This person has come onto the national stage in 2014 out of nowhere with the catchphrase. I mean, he's a very social media savvy prime minister. Sorry, behaves like a president, but it's fine, right? A very charismatic, very savvy with social media. Over 10 years, and he's going to be facing his third election now. He's consistently improved his voter base and his ability to garner more and more of support across different categories of people, institutions, and so on. It's now complete. I mean, and that whole process of having influence over all facets of running a country. From the army, he's been consistently visiting the army border camps during Diwali, spending time with the soldiers, and building bonds with the army for the 10 years. He's well entrenched, or his views are heard by the judiciary as well, and the administration, of course. The administration in India has been the worst. I mean, they're very inefficient, administrators in India. They come from, the British age kind of lifestyle and thought. He's been consistently trying to clean that up, trying to make them more efficient, more accountable, and so on. So he's garnered such a broad base of support that it seems like it's going to be a landslide election, and it's seeming that way. I mean, every single news article is glowing in tribute to the great things that have happened over the last 10 years, and so on. We feel that over the next 2 months, we're going to have a lot of it's almost going to be a festival of democracy that in India right now. I mean, we'll see. I mean, people will go to vote, and though everybody feels that the election results are already known, right? So it's crazy.
Yeah, so from what I understand, it's been about 10 years with Modi. And if I were to describe the opposition in India, is it fair to say it's scattered and disorganized and ineffective? Is that
Yeah,
fair?
yeah, it's completely disorganized. The main opposition party is the Indian National Congress, which is the oldest political party in India. There's been a systematic effort by Modi's party to disintegrate the Congress, and they also have a slogan called Congress Mukt Bharat, right? So remove the Congress from India. So
Wow.
it's been a systematic both social media and in real life sort of engaged pressure on the opposition, which has its flaws. I mean, it's become a dynastic party, which is a single family party, but all politicians want to transfer power to their progeny, right? I mean, that has been the case in India at least, forever, right? So yeah, the Congress party has been decimated, brought to a point where they don't have a standing, other than in a few pockets. The rest of the parties are all regional parties. So Tamil Nadu has its own parties. Andhra Pradesh has. But they're all getting consolidated by the BJP in some form or the other, which is Modi's party. So we do believe, at least I believe that. Unless something drastic happens, which I'm not ruling out, there is going to be a landslide victory for Narendra Modi in the 2024 elections.
Yeah, let's keep an eye on that. So that's April, is that right? When
It's May.
elections start?
It's May.
May.
May. Yeah. It's 2 months from
Pretty
now.
soon.
Yeah.
And quite possibly the largest election in world history, right? As far as number of voters.
Yeah, it will be the largest. Yeah, it will be the largest number of voters registered to vote, and there's a lot of excitement among the new voters, the people who have just turned 18 and above. I mean, they are the people that are really looking forward to this election. So I think we'll have the largest number of people voting ever during this election.
Yeah, so potentially, like our three countries have three different things going on. There's the uncertainty in the United States of who's going to win. No landslide possible here. It's going to be close and dramatic if you're into drama. And then Pakistan, it's got a different kind of drama going on. It sounds like an uncertainty. India seems to be headed to a landslide.
Thanks to one
soon.
person and thanks to Narendra Modi, I think it's magic what he's done here. I mean, it's like, it's, I mean, yeah, it's almost like a combination of statecraft, a lot of, popular kind of messaging. There's a lot of love, there's a lot of, hope, admiration for the man, and it's just mind-boggling what one person can do, right? I mean, yeah. India, it's just that now. India is Modi. I mean, that's what we've become, right? It's that.
It seems that way. And in a country of 1.4 billion people, it's pretty amazing that one person can lead that country in landslide victories like this, especially because all three of our countries have political dynasties, right? We've had the Bush dynasty here, and we've had the Clinton dynasty here. And in Pakistan, there's been daughters like Benazir Bhutto, right, was a daughter of a leader. And you had the Gandhi family in India, with Rahul Gandhi kind of the face of the opposition, with his mother, Sonia Gandhi, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but that's their undoing as well. I mean, because the popular mindset is that dynastic politics has brought us to where we are today, right? And there's a little, I mean, obviously, we can't undo the past, and I mean, Jawaharlal Nehru, Indira Gandhi, and all of that. I mean, they played a part in building the country to what it is today, right? But as of now, the current population feels very strongly that dynastic politics is the reason why we are in the situation we are in, and Narendra Modi offers an alternative, which is, somebody who's working for his country and incorruptible, completely passionate, all of that, right? So, which I think is ticks all the boxes from what a ideal politician is supposed to be.
And Modi does not have any children that we know of, right?
Yeah, so that's the other thing. I mean, he comes from the organization called RSS, Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, which is started in 1925. So every RSS organizer is called a pracharak, and pracharak, if to become a pracharak, you can't have a family, you can't even have a job, right? You have to be a full-time social service person, right? And you can't have a salary. You have to eat what you get, given, right? So he was that. I mean, Narendra Modi, was a pracharak till 1998, when he or sometime around then when he became the chief minister of Gujarat. And then the rest is history, right? I mean, so he doesn't have a family, and that is part of the persona that he's created. That he's incorruptible because he doesn't have anybody to do it for. It's the people of India are his family, right? So yeah,
I think as a Pracharak, he also visited the United States for the
several
first
times.
time.
Yes.
Yeah, back in the day. All right, that's the political scene. A lot going on. Let's keep an eye on this stuff. We'll keep talking about it, I'm sure. Moving on to business, which is, I think, also critical. And I can tell you the environment around the economy in the United States is generally positive. We have a few problems. We have high inflation and high interest rates still, but a lot of Americans, including myself, are looking forward to those rates coming down, which will, I think, be good for the economy. It'll be good, hopefully, for the stock market, real estate, other things. Currently, because of interest rates being so high, that's affecting home buying. It's affecting auto market, the automotive market. And I'm actually in the automotive industry myself as a government bureaucrat in the Midwest of the United States. I deal with the auto industry. Let's talk about Pakistan. And Taimur, I understand from what you said that things are rough right now in Pakistan. I know inflation's high over there as well, much worse than ours. What's it like, and what would you say can help get out of this situation in the future?
So
And
I think, Mahan,
talk about it.
actually, the thing is that it's a good question. And, Pakistan has been struggling for quite some time, I would say. It's not something which has just happened all of a sudden. And I think what we're seeing now is a culmination of bad economic policy that has carried on for quite a number of years. And, unfortunately, unlike India, I think Pakistan never really started off in the right fashion to begin with. India has always had a close, for the longest time, India had a closed door policy, and they had a sort of, the internal industry was allowed to develop, and it was almost shut out to the world, right? And what ended up happening as a result was that India developed its car industry, and India developed its motorcycle industry, and so on and so forth, right? A lot of local industry was allowed to have that breathing space where over the years you saw that a lot of these companies, they turn into very large local companies, right? Even today, I think some of the companies, they're worth just a huge amount of money, right? I keep reading in the newspapers, Ambani is worth so much and Tata is worth so much and so on and so forth, this, that, and the other, whatnot. Now, Pakistan has always had a problem with feudalism, all right? And I think that's one of the main problems that we've had over the years is that Pakistan has unfortunately the feudal system here has not been abolished, which it should have been done right from the very start. Now, Benazir Bhutto, whose name you keep hearing, also is essentially her family is a feudal lord family, right? So they're feudal lords. So where I live in Karachi, if you travel outside of Karachi, the province is known as Sindh, and there are five provinces in Pakistan. And Benazir's family is from the Sindh province, and they're very influential landlords here in Sindh. And what that means is essentially that the PPP, the Pakistan People's Party, to which she belonged, and now her husband is running, Mr. Asif Zardari. What this effectively means is that when you go to the interior parts of Sindh, not in the city of Karachi, but when you go to the interior parts of Sindh, a lot of the vote bank, right, is controlled by these landlords, is controlled by this feudal setup. So it's part of like it's like almost like you go to the village, and most of the people living in that village, they will be having their loyalties towards a political party which has somebody on their charter who owns the land over there. So like a landlordly, right? So so how does this all link up? Well, it links up because we're talking about business, but all of this sort of ties in because because obviously we're talking about why we've had these problems. We've had these problems because uh, there's been a lot of interference in our political system from these quarters, and effectively we've never really had a uniform policy that's been allowed to develop. So over the years, we have not been able to, form our local industry, not been able to allow it to flourish, not been able to create value-added goods, right? And that's, I think, where Pakistan has had a serious problem. There's been a shortage of value-add products, and then just generally, because of this entire political rigmarole with the politicians that come from feudal backgrounds, with the military, like I explained, and the constant changing of power, the policies economically, they have not been implemented for long enough. So you need an economic policy to sustain over a period of time for it to become viable, right? That hasn't happened, unfortunately. And the result is what you see today. Now, coming on to the environment, right now the interest rates are very high in Pakistan. They're in around 20% mark, which is extremely high. And so what that means is that a lot of people are holding on to their funds here and they're putting them in the banks, and they're not investing it into business because you're sitting at home and you're just leaving your money in the bank and you're getting 20% return, doing absolutely nothing.
Wow,
And
20%.
that's very yeah, and that's very high, right? And so, but it sounds like a good thing, but it's actually a really bad thing. It's a terrible thing because people don't want to invest into any new businesses, right? So this business growth has almost died down completely because people are just not willing to take out money and put it into a new venture or startup or whatever it is, and they're just leaving their money in the bank. Inflation, as you mentioned rightly, this is already very, very high. And this is a global issue, but I think it's affecting us a little bit more than the other countries. We are waiting for that to come down. Unfortunately, Pakistan has always been in what is known as a debt trap. And a debt trap essentially because we've been borrowing heavily from the IMF. And I think India addressed that issue many years ago when they actually, sort of managed to come out of that debt trap to a large extent. Unfortunately, Pakistan was not able to come out of that debt trap. On the contrary, the debt has been compounding, and they haven't paid it off, and it's just going, it's growing. And what that means is that the IMF has now given conditions to Pakistan for future borrowing, which are taking a lot of factors into consideration, including taxation and a bunch of other stuff, right? And so effectively, because of our debt trap situation, this is slowing down our growth constantly. And for the time being, it seems as if the economy is not really heading in the right direction, and things are likely to remain slow for quite some time to come. I hope that gives you a decent overview of
It's a
what's
great
going on.
overview, and it's again, these are complex things that you're not it's not easy to just say, let's do this and everything will be fine, right? There's a lot of factors involved. And
Right.
um, obviously, overall, Taimur, you and I went to Georgetown together, right, and took international trade as a class. And the only thing I remember from that class, honestly, from like 1998 or whatever, is trade is good, right? Trade is good for both countries engaged in it. And I think to the extent we can talk a little bit about trade, increasing trade, I think that's a good thing, especially if Pakistan offers things that to sell to other countries. But you need the right environment for foreign direct investment to come in.
Right. So there's other issues. When you're mentioning trade, right now, unfortunately, in order to protect the foreign currency reserves, which are fairly low, they've implemented a ban on the amount of money that you can repatriate as a foreign company. Right. So
Uh,
foreign companies are having a tough time taking their funds out of Pakistan. So if let's say there's a foreign currency that for a company that invests in the country, it's quite difficult for them to actually take their money out of the country. And so it's hurdles like these, they create more problems. And while trade is a good thing, you mentioned obviously trade is absolutely essential. There are a lot of problems right now,
yeah.
for traders in general. And a lot of them have to do with the difficulties being faced as far as repatriation of funds are concerned,
Yeah, if that kind of thing happens, it'll discourage other companies
Absolutely.
from investing, of course. So
Absolutely.
moving on to Anup and the economy of India, which is also a very big, complex beast, obviously. But for how would you describe it, since you're right in the middle of it?
So I think I want to take up on what Taimur just said, right? I mean the debt part of the economy. And just reflecting on what he was saying, sometime around the 60s and 70s, India had a whole Marxist communist sort of a movement against the zamindari system or the feudal system, right? And there was a land ceiling act and so on that was passed in India. And so India was a socialist republic back in the 60s and 70s. And just reflecting on what Taimur was saying, maybe it was a good thing for us, right? Having gone through that and removing the whole, or at least countering the zamindari system, which is a feudal system which sort of kept power among the few, right? I mean, and did not let the masses develop, right? As we stand today, through many quirks of fate. I don't think this was like a planned thing that somebody sat and planned it. It was a series of events that happened and quirks of fate that have resulted in India being in this Goldilocks kind of a situation, right? I mean, it's like so beautiful that everything can just stack up so nicely, and India can be at the forefront of a new civilization, right? Which is what I will talk about. We have the youngest population, or a young population that is at about 26 median age right now, and it's becoming smaller and smaller, right? Over the next 6 years, I think it'll be like 24 or something, the median age.
Amazing.
Given the yeah. And then the other thing that has happened is our democracy is starting to work, right? We were able to see that a startup party like an Aam Aadmi party with no backing was able to create like a national level political party within 5 years. Within 5 years, a party was able to come up and win an entire state with no coalitions, nothing. Delhi elections and now Punjab and so on, right? So we know democracy is working. I mean, new parties are able to come up and form and take power and govern effectively, right? And the last part is the digital piece that India has put together thanks to Nandan Nilekani, and I mean, India's IT, prowess, if you will, from that perspective, has translated into a lot of digitization of government to citizen interface, including some of the bureaucratic stuff that we typically spend a lot of effort on, right? So put this all together, young people that demand digital interfaces, government has become more or less digital. There is, a vibrant democracy that is forming. It seems bleak right now, given that Modi is accumulating a lot of power. But if you look under the hood, you see that it is actually cracking open the feudal landscape, which were taken over the political landscape. Now let's bring it to the economy, right? I mean, the economy is for too long, the economy has been controlled by the colonial powers, in my opinion, right? I mean, why should I live 30 years from now in an economy that was created 200 years back by the landed gentry of England, right? And America and so on. I don't desire to live in that economy because eventually economy is about us. I mean, it is about people trading with each other, right? I mean, having the ability to produce and consume, right? Obviously, there is infrastructure creation and all of that, which government plays a role in. But I feel with this new internet age that we live in, we can create an economy that is cross-border, right? You can create pockets of growth, which is through people-to-people exchanges and so on. And that I think is in my opinion, that is the path forward for Pakistan, for India, for every place else, right? That we as entrepreneurs, as change makers, as people on the ground, we should start creating our own, paths, right? And India, I think, is there already with the startup economy and all of that going on. I'm super optimistic about this region becoming, a really prosperous, at the same time sustainable, and so on. Our biggest problem, I mean, today I feel is water and natural resources of that nature, right? I mean, climate change is the largest challenge, right? India will face I mean, economy might do well, but we might not have the right resources from a water perspective and so on. Those are the worries that I see in the economy, right? Water, I think, will be a big problem. I mean, overall in India, in the subcontinent potentially, water will be a big problem. But otherwise, I think we are a young population, India and Pakistan and Burma and Bangladesh and everybody put together, large economy and potentially a major amount of trade that can go on in this region, especially when you link up the Middle East, everything that existed peacefully before 1950, I guess. So, yeah.
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of talk about conflict when it comes to history or what's going on in the world right now. There's the Russia-Ukraine situation, the Israel situation with Gaza and the Palestinians. But there's a war that pretty much affects all of us, whether it's Pakistan, India, United States, China, anyone else, I believe, is climate change, as you mentioned. Controversial topic, but I think in hot countries, especially like Pakistan and India, where it's affecting agriculture, it affects the economy, obviously, and infrastructure and other things. This is an example of we have to work together as one on this stuff. No matter what we all think, no matter what the politics are of the various conflicts and disagreements and the history, which is checkered, we are all in this together. If you believe in the planet, you believe in one humanity. There's nothing else that's more existential for the long term of our children, grandchildren, etc. And we're gonna sink or swim together here, which is
And
something.
the earth doesn't recognize national boundaries, right? National borders doesn't recognize, is not part of earth, right? I mean, at some point in time, I mean, and this time is not far. It could be 30 years from now or even sooner, maybe, when national borders will look, childish. I mean, compared to the challenges that we will be facing.
Well, look at what we're doing now, right? We're using the technology to connect right now, person to person. I hope this continues and that others are doing various kinds of things, whether in business, technology, etc. And that's a part of the reason I wanted us to gather to do this, which is awesome. And we've covered a lot of ground, a lot of intelligent conversation. I find it fascinating learning more about India and Pakistan, and I'm looking forward to visiting again. So to give people a sense of who we are, and obviously we're making a lot of, we have a lot of opinions that are strong on these areas. Just for context, Taimur, can you tell us what you do in Pakistan? Like, I know you're a business person and I've seen it. myself when I was over there. How would you describe what you're working on and some of your goals for 2024? I know it's a tough business environment, but how are you navigating all of this in your work?
Mahanth, I'm basically, like I mentioned, I'm into property development. I'm a real estate developer, and my family, we do property. And at this point in time, we have planned a couple of projects that we are planning to bring onto the market, and they're both real estate projects. And our plan is to bring them onto the market, launch them, and then start building them. Unfortunately, because of the high interest rate environment, which I mentioned already, that has slowed things down. People are hesitant to put money into property because, like I said, they're getting 20% sitting at home in the bank. So why would anybody buy property when all you have to do is leave your money in the bank? And that's the problem that we're facing. So that's what I do. Another thing which I'm looking at these days, and it might be of interest to Anup because Anup has been in IT for a very long time, it seems. I'm now stepping into the IT sector or trying to step into the IT sector. The IT sector, interestingly, is a growing sector in Pakistan. And I understand that India has already experienced a lot of growth. In Bangalore, I believe, is one of the hotspots. It's called the Silicon Valley of India, if I'm not wrong. Pakistan is also, in its own way, obviously does not compare for size, but in its own way, I would say a growing IT market. And there's a lot of IT work that is going on in Karachi, in Lahore, in Islamabad, in these main cities. And a lot of this work is sort of back office related, what you call BPO related, BPO type work, which is going on, right?
Business
So business
process outsourcing, right?
business process outsourcing. So you see a lot of that now. There's a lot of companies that are doing that. There is basic level IT skills as well as some reasonably advanced level IT skills, coding languages, things related, just general website development, a whole host of stuff which is being done here. And so IT is definitely a growing sector, and that's something that I'm also looking to get into. One of the reasons is that the currency in Pakistan unfortunately has depreciated a fair amount in recent times, and as a result of that, it is very attractive for an entrepreneur to start looking at IT because you end up earning in foreign currency, right? So this is a sector that I am exploring very actively these days as well. And I would love to hear from Anup because he's in this field, and of course, having been in it for so long, he can shed some light on how things are going along in India.
Yeah, Taimur, this is a huge opportunity in the modern world when we're talking about things like artificial intelligence, when we're talking about blockchain technology and cryptocurrency. And just today, I think Bitcoin's at near its all-time high, if not its
So
all-time.
Mahant, so
Yeah,
Mahant, so Mahant, Bitcoin is not something which is very which hasn't. You won't find very many people in Pakistan that are invested in Bitcoin at this point. There are some, there are a few, but in general, there is not much understanding of Bitcoin amongst the masses at this point in time. There are obviously there are some investors, sophisticated investors that are sort of interested in Bitcoin and whatnot, but that's the exception rather than the rule, I would say. And as far as AI is concerned, artificial intelligence, that's a very new thing over here, and it is catching on slowly. There are a few firms and a few companies that are getting into artificial intelligence, but I would say that the level of proficiency is not very high at the moment. It's still in the initial stage, I would say. And so, if you have an AI guy who's capable of doing AI in the US, or if a company that's I have friends in the US that are like I know somebody by the name. There's a company by the name of Spark Cognition. A friend of mine, he's one of the founding members. They're Houston based. I think the level of AI that you find in the US is far ahead compared to the level of AI that you find here in Pakistan at this point in time. Will that stay the same? I don't think so. I think AI will catch on very fast here as well. There are people that are now getting interested in this field, and so you can expect that in Pakistan there is going to be growth in this sector, as well as in the IT sector in general. Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies still a very very niche market, I would say, here in Pakistan.
yeah. I bring these up as opportunities. It's actually an opportunity if these things are not widely adopted yet, right? So you mentioned inflation and you mentioned the interest rates. Blockchain is potentially a solution in countries with runaway economic problems, not controlled by the government of any of our nations, right? U.S. government doesn't control it. Pakistan's government, Indian government, and governments are trying to figure out how can they get their hands into this stuff. And then China banned crypto mining companies, which benefited the U.S. actually, if you're familiar with miners and what they do. So I brought those up there more as something to think about for you and other people that are interested in investing in the startup ecosystem. And
So I think the Pakistan presents a very good opportunity for foreign companies that are interested in the IT sphere. The cost of what you simply the labor cost is very low
right,
compared to let's say the US, for example. And I think that's the reason why you find a lot of work being outsourced to Pakistan is because you do actually. So it's interesting. There is a lot of institutes in Pakistan that are IT all out IT institutes, right? Like you have universities that are catered to IT, and you find more and more of these institutes coming up day by day. And so it's an encouraging sign in that sense. All the doom and gloom I just mentioned about the economy on one side, but I think there is a definite sort of growth opportunity as far as IT is concerned, because, like I said, there's a lot of institutes that are coming up that are focused on IT. There is a lot of work which is growing in IT, and the IT sector is actually expected to grow also. All the analysts are predicting that it's likely to keep looking to outsource IT work. I would definitely recommend looking at Pakistan as an option.
awesome, awesome. And then related to what we were just talking about, then where your sound went in and out a little bit. You mentioned a company in the United States that you knew someone working at. What was the name of that company again?
Yeah, so that was a company by the name of Spark Cognition. They're an artificial intelligence company. A friend of mine, Usman Shuja, I don't know if you remember him or not. He was with me in school when I used to be, when we were together in school in Karachi. He has been in the US ever since college, and he was one of the initial founding members of that company. It's an artificial intelligence company, and they do some pretty sophisticated, artificial intelligence related stuff. They are doing all kinds of government related AI based stuff. I don't know very many details, but I know that it's very high level and very sophisticated stuff that
Yeah,
they're doing. Like I said, Pakistan is not at that level as yet, but I think that in going forward, you will find that things will keep improving, and that's fair.
awesome. So we will put in our show notes when we upload this to YouTube. We'll put in the notes the name of this company and some other things we talked about for anyone interested.
Sure,
And um, let's
absolutely.
move over to Anup now, who is in the middle of the startup world and is living on MG Road in Bangalore, which is like the heart of Bangalore, right? And a great pub scene, by the way. And yeah, go ahead.
So first to Taimur's view on entering the IT business. So look, I mean, my first entrance into the IT business was as a services provider to large banks and institutions, not in India, and so the US dollar earning is like a plus. I mean, and I feel serving the Middle East, I mean Saudi Arabia specifically in IT, I think Pakistan might be better suited to do that because I mean I tried to do this in India and I failed primarily because of the cultural pieces, like for simple things like Sunday working, right? I mean, me getting people to come and work on Sunday in India was becoming a big hassle, and not having people working on a Sunday was a big problem for my Saudi clients, right? So and I feel skills wise
Because their
Pakistan
weekends
has
are different. Their
yeah so
weekends are Thursday,
Sunday,
Friday, right?
yeah. So I feel there's a lot of opportunity for Pakistan to enter the IT services field, focusing on the Middle East to begin with, and I'm sure that is already happening, right? Be it in banking and so on. And I think from there, from the services businesses where the startups and the IT products business and so on starts taking root, and I feel that's where India and Pakistan can work together on as well, right? I mean, eventually, when you look at this entire economy, I mean, it's an ideas economy, and it is about taking an idea and making it work in a location by the locals, right? And I think that can only happen if there is coordination. I mean, we can't have trade secrets and then work as vendors or whatever. Partners are better suited to this style of working. And that's what India is doing right now. I mean, broadly, the way this has gone is 30 years of IT services, domination in IT services, I feel, with TCS, with Wipro and Infosys and some of these large companies, even Accenture having their largest center here in India and so on. Over the last 15 years, India has graduated into this products kind of a business, or innovation-led, startup-led kind of setup. We've got about 100,000 companies that have been registered in the last 15 years that have all come into this startup economy. And we are now creating software products for America sitting in India. And these are all SaaS products which can be easily consumed by a mom and pop store sitting in Oregon can consume this software made by somebody sitting in India. So all of that is cost arbitrage that is working out. Within this entire field of things, I work in the open source space called the digital public infrastructure. The idea here is, can we all contribute to code that we can all use rather than proprietary software that each one of us creates in an island? Can we create digital public infrastructure that we can all use as citizens of a country, and the government can also use, and we can also ship it to other countries, and we can create an open source or a community source kind of a ecosystem. And that's where India is now taking this innovation of technology too. Rather than corporations, can we create an ecosystem of technologies that everybody has access to? And that's what is exciting to me, right? I mean, if we can, that's population scale. That is at a scale where everybody can start becoming part of the IT digital sort of ecosystem. And yeah, that's my gig, right? I mean, making that happen is my core purpose here in India.
So what you just said, Anup, I'm just thinking in my head, could apply to where I live in Wisconsin potentially. Could apply to where Taimur lives in Karachi as well, because for all three of our countries, small business is the backbone of the economy, right? You mentioned mom. Obviously, corporations have a role. We are on Google Meets right now. However, the real backbone of villages, the counties, the cities, the states, the regions, is really strong small businesses. And even though I work for the government, most of my budget of about $30 million a year is fed into small businesses for what I do. And I can't, my division can't prosper. The city cannot prosper without small businesses creating things, paying taxes, right? And generating revenue for the government. And it's a cycle, right? So small governments and large governments, whatever, need to feed into the private sector with building good roads and ports and providing policing and whatnot. In return, we need.
But
Yeah.
at the same time, I feel it's very unlikely for that to happen in America, which is heavily corporatized, heavily large corporate driven, and so on. It's more likely, and which is what I am betting on, and I feel that India has got the creds to do this. It's more likely for this leadership for this new people's economy to come out of India, right? And I told you about the quirks of fate that has led us to this, right? It was a bunch of judgments that people did, decisions that people made over the period of time across parties that has given us this situation. And it's the same time that the world is looking for a sustainable way for us all 8 billion people to live, right, on this planet. And I think that is what India is going to give. And this is what I am taking to the world also, right? I mean, saying that India is done taking solutions from elsewhere, right? We are now ready to offer solutions to the world. We believe that there is a better way to live rather than the one-way street that we've been told to live in, right? So we are saying, okay, here we are, 1.4 billion people. I mean, building a country here in this neighborhood with China and Pakistan, and we've had our issues with both countries, and it was, I mean, just like 100 years ago, it was all one country. We never fought with China, and now we are fighting like dogs, right? I mean, this is not something that has happened overnight. It's a systematic way in which this situation has been created for us. But we can now wake up and say, hey, we can change the way we live. We can, Aman ki Asha and all that good, but we can actually build a way in which we can teach the Europeans and the Americans how to live, right? I mean, and how to build, right? I mean, it is strife, but we can do this, right? I mean, this is what we'll do, right? So that's my thing with India and with America, Pakistan, all of us together. Like you said, climate change is the war here, right? Um,
Well, I think Anup sort of hinted at it, but it would definitely be nice to see Asia and South Asia rising as a power now in the world. We have a colonial history. I think you hinted at that also, and a shared colonial history, Anup. And I'm
All three
sure
of
that
us, all three of us
all three
were
of us, and
by the
I'm
British.
sure that none of us are particularly sort of fond of reading those textbooks where we keep reading about the fact that we were once upon a time ruled by the British, and I'm sure that there's this hidden desire in all three of us to surpass them at some point if we can, right? So I think that's what you hinted at, and I am with you on that. And it would be lovely to see our entire region sort of flourishing as a whole, and making its own destiny.
Guys, we've been going at it for an hour and a half. I mean, I didn't realize it's already 11:15. It's past dinner
It's,
time. And
it's gone
Yeah, I
by
think,
fast,
guys,
guys. So to wrap up
let's
here,
uh, let's do a, let's wrap up, and it's been an
yeah,
hour and a
let's
half.
wrap up. It went by fast. I think we have a lot more to talk about. So we can discuss moving on how we can work together more to promote the ideas we talk about. But
Yeah.
I do want to give a shout out to a group that Anup mentioned, Aman Ki Asha. I hope everyone here checks them out. They are a group promoting peace between India and Pakistan, and they're a group that I follow, and I hope folks over there would be interested in what we're trying to do here as well. So we will wrap up. In closing, real quick, I am going to say for 2024, my word is optimism. I'm going to give each of you guys one word for the year 2024, no matter what it is. Be direct and fair. And
courage,
honest.
courage is what comes to my mind. Courage.
All right, nice. Taimur.
I'm gonna have to think about this, man. It's not coming to me as quickly as it came to both of you.
Next
I
time.
think you guys pretty much you guys already took the two words I would have chosen from. So
Courage
maybe
and
maybe
optimism. All
bravery.
right.
All right, I'll go with bravery. All right, I'll go with bravery.
Yes.
Bravery.
Awesome,
Okay.
guys. So let's wrap up here. Thank you all.